I fired two professionals during this rebuild. One was willing to make assumptions. The other missed one measurement that stopped my project for over a month. One thing I learned during this rebuild is that just because someone is a professional doesn't mean they're right. As a homeowner, nobody's going to care more about your house than you do. Sometimes you have to ask questions. Sometimes you have to replace the people you're paying. Once the tree was gone, demolition started. I knew they were going to find more damage. I just didn't know how much more. The first surprise came when they opened up the wall between my upstairs office and the attic. Almost immediately, we found more damaged rafters, then another. By the time they finished opening everything up, we found 10 additional damaged rafters that nobody could see while the tree was still in the house. The hole in the roof was much bigger than we originally thought. That reinforced something I'd already learned. Storm damage isn't always visible. Sometimes you don't find the real damage until you're taking the house apart. One of the first subcontractors to show up was the HVAC guy. The first thing that bothered me wasn't technical. It's how he introduced himself. Actually, he didn't. He walked into my house and said, "Where are the units?" No handshake, no introduction, no, "How are we doing?" Maybe that doesn't bother some people. It bothered me, especially after what we just been through. I took him upstairs, showed him where the tree had landed. He brushed a few pine needles off the old units, looked at them maybe for a minute, then looked back towards where the tree had came through the roof, said, "Oh, these should be fine." That answer did not sit right for me. I didn't fire him because of what he said. I fired him because of what he didn't consider. Into real estate, I spent years in the Navy. As a submarine mechanic, later as a chief engineer. One thing engineering teaches you, that energy has to go somewhere. 80-foot pine tree just doesn't break through 14 rafters, damage ceiling joints, bend a gas line, and then stops transferring energy a few inches away from two HVAC units. That didn't make sense to me. Maybe they were fine, maybe they were not. But replacing two HVAC units after the house was finished would have cost me thousands of dollars if they were damaged and nobody caught it. I wasn't willing to take that chance based on a 5-minute inspection. I called my GC. I told him I wanted a new HVAC subcontractor. There wasn't an argument. He simply said he'd take care of it. Years later, we still work together. I think that's because he understood I wasn't looking for an argument. I wanted an answer that made sense. I thought that was the biggest mistake that we'd have during the rebuild. It wasn't. One of the opportunities that came out of this storm was the roof. Since the roof had to be replaced anyway, I started looking at whether we qualified for a Fortified roof. If you're not familiar with the program, it updates the way the roof is attached to the house and brings it to a much higher standard for wind resistance. I asked my GC if we could make it happen. Instead of telling me no, he went and actually became Fortified certified. Then hired an architect to draw the plans. The architect spent hours measuring the house. Everything looked like it was moving in the right direction. Then my phone rang. It was the parish, county, and other states. They asked me to verify the thickness of my roof decking. At first, I thought they called the wrong person. Then I realized the measurement wasn't in the plans. I remember hanging up the phone and thinking, why am I doing someone else's job? Thickness of the roof decking is one of the most basic measurements needed to determine whether the roof meets current code. The architect had to measure almost everything, but he missed the one thing that mattered most. I immediately called my GC. I told him that architect wasn't coming back, not because he made a mistake, because that mistake was going to delay the whole project. We had to start over. That meant new plans, another review by the parish, another review by the insurance company. By the time everything worked its way back through the system, we lost a month. I had another architect come out. First thing he did was measure the roof decking. Within minutes, he said, "We're replacing the whole roof." That one measurement qualified for the Fortified upgrade and moved the project forward again. By that point, I had stopped assuming every professional was going to catch every problem. I started verifying everything. Trust but verify. If something didn't sound right, I asked questions. If I didn't hear an answer, I kept asking. Not because I wanted to make anyone's job harder, it was because I am the one who had to live in the house after everybody's left. If there's one lesson from this part of the rebuild, it's this. Trust professionals, but verify their work. Ask questions, understand their answers. If something doesn't make sense, don't ignore the feeling. The HVAC contractor taught me that experience doesn't guarantee a good inspection. The architect taught me even the small oversights can create major delays. In the end, asking questions got us a better roof, a house built to a higher standard, and a confidence the job had been done correctly. Because at the end of the day, contractors go home, architects go home, inspectors go home. You're the one who has to live with the house.